Welcome to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. This is Chris Miller. I invite you to join me as I interview artists from a variety of disciplines. We'll share powerful stories and lessons learned while making their art. Today, I'm in conversation with licensed clinical social worker and therapist Peggy Roberts. Peggy's very special to me. She recently served as my mentor while I worked toward my certification as a licensed spiritual coach with the Center for Spiritual Living in Dallas. She is going to help me pinpoint some ways that I can improve my process as a spiritual artist. Good morning, Peggy.
Good morning, Chris.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Perfect. Peggy, we were just discussing, and I want to share this with our listeners, that you have so much experience in therapy and licensed clinical social work. I met you as my mentor. You were my licensed spiritual coach while I went through the process myself. And so, listeners, I've learned so much working with Peggy, and I want to share that with you. Okay.
Oh, great.
So Peggy, one of the things that that I came up with is I want to tell you my little journey as an artist. So I started painting a long time ago. I think it was in the year 2000. And when I painted, I started realizing that when I got into what I call the zone or flow, when I was able to kind of stop my thinking and just be in the moment, be present, as Eckhart Tolle says, I kind of reached this really incredible sensation. And it was a feeling of connectedness. A feeling of being connected to something bigger than me. And that is probably where I was introduced to the spiritual aspect of this. And that is where I've come up with my whole book, The Spiritual Artist. So it's interesting to me to explore this. And my goal here has always been to share this process with other people, because the creative process, it's not just about painting, is it?
No, it's not.
No, it's everything. It's when we engage in something consciously. So I have shared this. We've had people on the show that are landscape architects. We've had actors. We've had musicians. We've had, you name it, because the creative process can be anything from truly baking something in your kitchen to raising children to, of course, helping people through coaching. So tell me about this. I discovered this in your bio and I found it fascinating. Transpersonal therapy. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, just a little bit. So what I've found with seeing clients is we come in or they come in to see me and there's an issue. And sometimes that issue is based on what they've experienced in their childhood and growing and their growth. And so it's a conditioned self. And so sometimes that's where their focus is. And when they focus on that, they have this breakthrough. And the breakthrough is the resolution of the past. And then they are in this spiritual journey. It's a place where they can connect to the God within and the God outside of them. And so it's a beautiful journey. Now, some people will come in and just feel disconnected and not wanting to look at their past, and they want this spiritual connection, and that's great. And then we have to go into where they're not in touch, where they're not, what their consciousness is, if that makes sense. Because we have different levels of consciousness. One of the levels of consciousness, which I think is really important, is like, how do I show up, and how can I continue to show up as me, and not from an ego place, but from a humanistic place, from a place of who my best self is. And then we have the part that's spiritual, the part that is God, and the part that's creative, and the part that connects to everything in the universe. And so we work in that area. Does that make sense to you, Chris?
A little. Well, it does, because what's interesting for me, when I was doing art, I had to stop. I stepped back and watched my thoughts.
Yeah.
Learning to watch the signals in my head that were saying stuff like, you can't paint, or you're not an artist, or you're never going to be good enough. And only by stepping back and watching them, first I watched them, right, and then I kind of let them go. I said, these aren't true thoughts. These aren't real thoughts. Was I able to get to that?
And I think, that's probably the way we part of our journey of life is, like when you start painting or you start drawing, you're doing it from your ego perspective. You're doing it from the Chris that thinks he's supposed to paint like this, or these colors I've been told match, and this is what I'll do, and I'll put these shadows in. And then when you have that developmental growth and you move through that and you're in the zone, as you like to call it, you know that it's not just the Chris, it's not ego Chris, the spirit takes over and then begins to paint, or then begins to cook or bake or whatever your creative path is. Eventually spirit shows up. What I like to happen is, as soon as I pick up that paintbrush, that signals spirit is present. Like to have that consciousness change from, here it is, I'm Chris, the human being, and my ego. And here it is, I'm Chris in the divine flow. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but.
Well, yeah, I would think that the act of picking up the brush, you can work on what I would call ritual.
Yes, exactly.
And ritual can help guide you into that state. Once you discover that state, a lot of people never discover the state. And my original title for the book was The State of an Artist, because it's how do you get there? And so as I explored each chapter, I was like, okay, so you have to recognize your thoughts. You have to look at your emotions and learn to ride them and let them be. And so there's this practice of what you can do to get into that place, Now, is that something that you work with transpersonal therapy?
Well, I think each individual, it would be different about what is what's the brush? What's the key? I could have answered first, yes, but like, what's the key? That would have made sense. But what's the key? What's it going to be for me? What's it going to be for me that says I'm connected to God? I'm connected in that special place of seeing that I am not just one. I am here in the universe, and it's all flowing through me. I wanted to tell you about this experience I had as a child, where I'd go into the Catholic Church, and in the Catholic Church, I was raised Catholic, and you would put your hand in the holy water, and then you'd do the sign of the cross. And I was told, you're just doing that because you're in God's house. And later, a priest told me that you do that, you put your fingers in the holy, notice you only do two, and you do then the sign of the cross. And what that is it's take you into the ritual. It takes you into, I am here present with spirit. And so at a very early age, we're introduced, I know lots and lots of people were introduced to different rituals, and we didn't even recognize what they were doing or what they were supposed to be doing. And so we can choose what our ritual is. You can choose that if I pick up the paintbrush, that's moving me into a spiritual place. And you get quiet, and you allow yourself to feel, and you allow yourself to experience more when you pick up that magical paintbrush.
Oh, that's interesting. I did reflect on that. I was raised Catholic also. And that's one thing that they are known for, that they are really supportive with, is the act of ritual. Whether you're kneeling or crossing yourself or walking in, and that ritual is important to create what I call a sacred space. When I would go to Santa Fe and paint with my mentor, my art mentor, I love the way she held this energy in the art room. You would walk in, and there was this wonderful energy of everything is safe here. This is a place to explore. This is a place to just let yourself be, to not judge. The most important thing is non-judgment. And I think that idea of a ritual is so key to anybody listening to this, the listeners, adding ritual into your process.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why people have prayer shawls.
Yes.
When they sit in their meditation, it signifies that when they put that shawl around them, that the rest of the world is closed out, that they are just being one with the spirit, and that God is just flowing through them, and they're not going to let anything interfere. It's a consciousness, but it's not what, when people talk about that raising your consciousness as a spiritual connection, it's first on the humanistic part, first being a human. Oh, I'm going to do this so that I can get to this process.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I think you do have to start. I also agree with that. You start with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. And when you described your art and how when you started and then eventually you saw that and you felt like, oh my gosh, God is right here. And I'm doing this from a very creative space. You trained yourself that the art brush was the thing that changed you. It was the ritual that you began. You started developing your own ritual.
Right. It's very interesting. So, we were talking about this, where this transpersonal therapy starts based off of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Am I saying that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Hierarchy of needs. Yes. And how this has been added. This was added to the top of that process and so listeners, what that starts with is your basic needs are your physiological needs, just food, house. And then you go up to safety, and then you look for love and belonging, and then you're working on esteem. And these are the steps you can see it in your children. As your children grow, you can see where they're exploring certain needs, and then they get into esteem and self-actualization, where they're actually, what would you say that is? Consciously choosing what they.
Well, I think that's your highest self, not the higher self in the spiritual aspect of it. It's the part of I think people might want to say I've arrived, and it's kind of like beyond your hurts, beyond your childhood experiences. It's the adult that is not really so attached to the ego. It's a place that the ego doesn't drive, but we as a human, we have an ego, right?
Oh,
but
yeah.
I want to say is oh yeah, I want to say it's that place that we're just more. It's the combination of spirit and humanness together. It's that place of I don't right now. It's just I've arrived, and I've come out of the darkness of whatever my childhood was. Everybody doesn't have a dark childhood. But it's just that childhood influences. We do have a conditioned self. And so we're no longer living in the conditioned self.
And I love that, and explore that a little bit further for the listeners. Conditioned self is the things that we've learned through being raised by our parents and society and the system, the country that we're in, the religion that we were raised in. That's our conditioned self. Is that correct?
That's right. Thank you. Yes.
And then we get to choose. We get to a certain point, a self-actualization, where we choose which aspects of that we want to carry on. Right?
You're great. That's perfect.
I had a good coach.
I've heard that.
So this is a little bit past self-actualization. This is where transpersonal, where it's connecting to realizing there's something more.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to tell you this story that was amazing to me, but
share it.
Okay, I love it. So about 4 years ago, I got to go to Costa Rica, and I really felt like I shouldn't be going because my husband was unemployed, and but I had already paid for the ticket and all. It was prepaid, and he said, go, you've already paid for it. And I said, okay, I'm gonna go because I want a spiritual experience. That's why I'm going. And so I got to go, and I had a little tiny budget, and I got to walk in the rainforest. And it was a guided tour, and I told the guy, I said, look, I'm only here because I need a spiritual experience. I have to have that. And he said, okay, Peggy, he said, here's what you need to do. And he was right. He said, you need to hold back. You need to be by yourself. You need to be here alone, by yourself, and in the experience. And there were 25 people on the tour. And so I held back. I really held back. And I just got into this really quiet space, and I looked around in the forest for me. I wanted to find me. Like, where was I in the forest? And I looked all around, and I saw this plant that all the sunlight just shined right on that plant. Everything else was in shade, but just this one, I have to say it was beautiful. It was this really big fern, and it must have been about, I don't know, 8 feet tall, and the light was just shining on it, and nothing around it looked the same. It was the only unique plant that I saw right there at that moment. And I took it in. I was like, oh my God, thank you. That's me. I'm unique. I'm unique with all of these others that, there's green all around us and they're all plants. And so we all belonged. I was just being unique, uniquely me. And what happened with that is like this, my vision changed. I was like looking through a mesh where everything had a different dimension and everything became one and separate at the same time. It was an amazing experience. And I was so grateful to be able to go through that journey alone and by myself and find me. And then I started looking at all the different things along the path of how it was telling me and giving me messages, and it was just such a beautiful, wonderful experience. I'm glad we've never shared that before, Chris. So I'm really glad that I could share it with you.
Well, I loved it. There are so many things that you mentioned in there that I was like, oh, commenting on. There's just so many things. The concept of being alone, it is important. I've gone to Santa Fe every year for a week. I go just for 1 week, but I stay alone. And people are asking, well, are you seeing this site? Are you going to this tourist destination? I'm like, no, I'm staying out in the country. I watch nature. I get grounded.
Yeah.
And, I sit there. Yeah, I sit there with my coffee. I watch the sunset. And like you said, it's that, I call them moments of awe, just moments of awe where you sit there and you see something. And you hit this feeling envelop you, and I'm not just this isolated person, even though I'm alone, right?
Yeah. I
am connected to all this other.
Yeah.
All this other.
And you belong.
And you belong. Yeah. It's an incredible sense of love, which I do think is the channel that you are in when you experience those. It's whether you're looking at that light hitting that plant in the woods. Yeah. You're loving it. You're appreciating it. You're seeing it for what it is.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing of it, where I'm just going to share this too. It's like, I came out of there with, I am amazing. It's like, it's like, oh no, you're not. No, I am amazing. When you can see yourself as this unique individual and that you're part of something and that you are that something, it is amazing. And if it is amazing, then therefore you are amazing. And that's beauty, that's great. I appreciate you sharing your experience in Santa Fe too.
Oh yeah, no, it's incredible. I think you're correct. You're right. It's that love of everything around you and yourself. I've realized that when I do the creative process, it's my ritual. The whole creative process itself is sort of my ritual to get there. And I used to feel, and I want to share this with my listeners, you don't have to go somewhere to get that. Right. Because I fell into that trap. And for 7 years, I would just count down the days till I was going back to Santa Fe. And then one time I came home and I sat in my own studio and I thought, wait a minute, if I can do this in Santa Fe, if I can be calm, be quiet, meditate, sit and look at the world and paint, well, I can do that here in my studio. And I did. I sat down and I just looked out the window and I thought, we don't have to, it's a good practice. It's good training, like you said, going away, separating yourself from the everyday was wonderful for you to get away from it all.
Well, I think what you're saying is you're absolutely right. I totally agree that you don't have to go anywhere. I think what we need to do is remember. I think that before we're born, that there is this spiritual connection that we have, that we really are connected. And what happens when we come through the womb, sometimes at conception, maybe we forget, this is a hard place to be. And so it takes us out of remembering our spiritual place. And so that quietness, that place of being one, we have to remember. And that part, when I went to to Costa Rica and saw that plant, it reminded me of who I am. And so for you, you remember who you are. You remember not just the humanness, but the spiritual part of you. And you let that spiritual aspect of you just flow. It's a wonderful gift that you have that you can let flow. And so when other people they forget. That's what I was saying in the beginning or earlier, it's like people come to me because really they've forgotten who they are. They've forgotten their spiritual aspect. And so whether that's going through their past and clearing that out and coming to peace with that and then moving forward, or whether that's like, you know what, let's just embrace who you truly are and let me help you see the truth of your being because you've forgotten. And that's the veils that just cover us up.
How beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah. You're right. I mean, and that's what is yours to do.
Yeah. Everyone's right.
People. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I have worked on a personal level with that, but I could see how you do that for others. You sit down and you help them. And I do think you step back and you look at it and you look at all those, that consciousness that is handed down to you and you decide, but that's wonderful. What a wonderful gift that you have.
Oh,
and
thank you.
and which is why I say that a spiritual artist, I don't want to confuse people to think a traditional term of an artist, a painter, someone that works with clay. An artist is someone that is consciously connected to what they do, which is what you just described. When you sit with someone, you're totally present with them. Because I've been through sessions with Peggy and she's right there with you and consciously focused on you, and it is an experience. It's an incredible experience.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy sitting with people and seeing their truth because it's sad that you could lose, you could forget, you could not know who you are. And when you don't know who you are, unfortunately, people around you can't recognize it. Sometimes they can recognize it, but sometimes they can't recognize what a beautiful person you are, what a beautiful, not just human being, but what a beautiful spirit you are. Because you get in a rut and you start showing up. Not my experience of you, Chris. But,
of course not.
But me. People, we all have been in ruts, right? And so when we're in that rut, sometimes we need that other person to just be with us and know our truth and not give up and not give up on us. Yeah, right. I don't know. There was a time when I didn't know me. And I wanted to not get out of bed and not be me. I didn't want to even be. And so I'm glad that was long ago and I am here today, present.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So we mentioned a couple things here that I guess being the organizer that I am, I tend to, my gift is to organize things. I'm organizing the process here. We talked about being quiet and alone. We talked about ritual. What are some other ways that people can practice to enter this kind of final step of Maslow's needs into that self-actualization?
This may not surprise you, but dance and music and movement can take you into this place of spirit, to the connection. And it's like, it's what your heart draws for you. So it could be that, like I said, it could be music, listening, it could be movement through it. Movement is great because movement grounds you. And there's different types of music that are really important. All that African drumming is good for grounding, and then you need something lighter to move into the spirit. And there's some studies on the vibrational frequency of music, which, notes have different resonance, like heart or throat chakra or, etherical music. The other thing is color. We use color to move through our chakra system and go into the highest realm. In meditation, we talked a little bit about that, but sometimes if you're able to meditate and you see colors, like when you close your eyes and you're really connecting, what happens is your system connects to the chakras and you'll start to begin to see each of your chakra colors in your third eye. You'll start to experience them. And that like can take you to another place to where you're seeing purple and magenta. And so I like the meditation looking for God. I'm just being observant. Just another thing that's really important is not to be hard on yourself. Like people will, like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to meditate and meditate and meditate. Maybe that's what you need, but maybe you need movement. Maybe you need fluidity in your body to move whatever's stuck and to go into this very spiritual place. A lot of times I think people need to do that by themselves because no one's watching. Right. And if our consciousness just isn't in the flow of what's going on inside of me, and they're concerned about what someone else is watching them move while they're meditating, or scratch their eye or their head, or, you get so involved in what I look like. Or if you're in the movement of dance, then it's like, is somebody watching how I move my arm, or do I really flow the way I want to, right? So that's one of the reasons you want to do that by yourself, is just so it's your experience.
That's interesting. So many things. Once again, you said so many things, it's hard to comment on each one of them. But in an earlier episode, a podcast, I talked with Lisa Coyle. She's a yoga instructor, and she goes through, we talk about how your body can lead your mind, and I have found that simply going through poses can release and move me into an emotional state and then also into a conscious state. So I never thought of colors though. So do you sit and just let the colors come to you in a meditation, or do you purposely choose them? Because I like to control things.
That is a great question. That is an awesome, great question, because each color has a vibrational frequency that's attached to an emotion. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No, I did not.
Yeah. And so I work with a color palette, so that I can help people move through where their stuck places are, so that they can go on to the next. Like, they're not stuck in whatever they experience, what emotion blocks them. But yes, a color would change your mind. A color would change your heart. A color would change your attitude. And if you wanted to, let me give you an example.
Okay.
So, and the raised Catholic, and you'll maybe have to edit this part out. Raised Catholic, the high services the garments are purple.
Right.
Purple is the color for trust. Isn't that interesting? When you're looking at that person that is giving that sermon and they're wearing purple, you're attuning to trust.
Well, it's also, I heard why, like royalty. The purple was used for kings and queens. It's royalty. So when you say you give them color and you have a color wheel, I need to know more. Do you actually have them focus on the colors?
I do. I have sent people these color palettes where I have about 13 different fabrics. And while we're talking, I'll listen to what the emotion you're stuck, what you need to look next. And then, excuse me. And then let me just give you an example. So you've got a lot of fear, not you, Chris, but the person had a lot of fear, like there's COVID, right? And so everybody's really afraid. And so I might have you look at the color maroon, because that's a grounding color, and it also is related to survival. And so I'll have you process, and I'll have you move your eyes, like it's about a 8.5 by 12 or something piece of fabric. And I'll ask you to move your eyes. I'll tune into you and say, okay, I want you just to look at this fabric, and I want you to move your eyes in the infinity, the shape of the infinity, as you look at this. So what that does, it allows the light to reflect onto the fabric, and that vibrational frequency goes into your eyes and into your brain, in different places in your brain when you're moving your eyes. And it allows that transformation, and it allows those issues to come up that are lodged in your brain.
That is fascinating. Is there a name for this type of work?
Well, there's this psychologist. His name is Steven Vasquez. He developed emotional transformation therapy, which is a take on emotional transformation therapy. It's my version. It's my spiritual version. But color therapy has been around for a really, really long time, you know. But if you're using color therapy, if you're using that vibrational, for instance, so let's say you had some hurt heart issues. Well, the heart is green. And so I've purchased fabrics that are, you know, like 2 yards by 60 inches and hung those up. So you could just focus, you could be focusing on this green color. So you can just be in the vibrational frequency of love. Now, let me tell you that color is on a spectrum. Emotions are on a spectrum. So when you're looking at this green, you might first feel unloved, sad, really sad, to where that transforms into joy, into feeling, wow, I feel love, self-love. That's what color is really powerful. Really.
That's interesting.
And as an artist,
yeah, I was going to say, as an artist, I wonder if when we paint, you know, because I oftentimes just sit there, people say, do you pre-plan? Do you? And I don't. I just sit there and I start letting things fall onto the canvas or board, and I just intuitively feel the color. And it's funny, I will sometimes place a color and then a couple more and then go back and erase out a color, because there is a harmony that I find in them and how they come together. And so I wonder if that is a reflection of the state I'm in, the emotional state I'm in when I do the work. Or
yeah. Well, I'm just curious that, like, looking at your picture behind, a painting behind you, you know. So black is a grounding color. So if you didn't have the black in the painting you have behind you, it might be too much. It might be too wild, because there's a lot of movement and a lot of fluidity, right? And so the black then lets you appreciate it and then be grounded in it, and then lets you appreciate more of the movement and then be grounded in it. So I kind of wonder about your question. It's a good question, and I bet it has the same answer. It's like, yes, it changes. I would love to send you a chart of what all the colors mean, but I don't want that to get in your way.
Right.
You know, sometimes too much information is too much information, right? And then it would get in your way. So you are experiential painting, you know, it's great.
Yeah, it's I really do believe that when I do a painting, it's a recording of the state I'm in, you know, and I just let it happen. And it flows out to whatever feeling I am. And I was telling a friend of mine the other day that I usually paint in joy. I usually do paint in joy, but a few years back, my father passed away, and I had 2 bad things happen to me that's in the same week. And suddenly I was just so sad. I went into the studio and I painted this very dark painting. But it was interesting. It was an interesting painting. And so a year later, I had an art show, and a woman came up to me and she said, I have to have that painting.
Wow.
And I didn't want to tell her the history. I didn't want to change her mind or warp her mind, but she goes, I'm so drawn to that painting. And the painting was a recognition that we all pass away, that everything is transient, and that my father was no longer with me. And it was a great painting. But I thought, isn't that interesting that she responded to the work of art,
yes,
on a level that she didn't even grasp? You know, we didn't know I didn't know what I was doing when I did it. I'm not sure she knew what she was seeing, but on some level of her consciousness, she was attracted to it.
Yes, and that's probably that she was at that same vibration that you were when you painted it. Yeah. Right? And so, and you didn't know you were painting it for her. You thought you were painting it for yourself. Yeah, I wonder when you were painting it, did you feel the movement, the spiritual movement inside of you, or did you feel, where was the ego connected to the painting? You know, you went in with that sadness about your dad.
It was sort of a release. I have learned with art and creating art to what I call ride your emotions. I liken it to a surfer on the ocean. The waves, your emotional waves come in, and sometimes you don't know where they're coming from. You know, but you just learn to ride them instead of don't stand in front of the wave and try to stop it. That's the emotion. Don't try to stop it. Just get on top of it. And as a creator, as a creative person, just let it express, because some people say, I think there's always a good time to go into your studio. It's always a good time, whether you're happy, sad, lonely, because you can use that energy, that emotion to propel the work, to actually push you through the work. So.
Well, and then you've created something that was an expression of your emotions, and you can let go.
Yeah.
It's like you documented how you were feeling. You didn't have to hold on. It's a way of letting go. It's a beautiful way of letting go. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many levels. I do want to share. I'm so impressed with your knowledge. There's so many techniques that you incorporate into your counseling and coaching. There's so many different fields of knowledge. I can't even list them all. They'll be in the bio section. I just want to tell the listeners. But I think that's what shows so much that you are a spiritual artist in what you do. Because, and that you're always drawn to expanding that and bringing something new into the process. So I love that. I definitely work with the colors. And so if I was, let's just give you an example. Say I go into the studio and I just don't know where I'm at. I feel a little ambivalent. I'm not ready to pick up the brush. Could I just look at colors, or could I, what would I do in that sense?
Well, I think you can make some choices. You are, as an artist, might look at colors. And you mentioned yoga as one of the things that open people up. So bioenergetics is another practice that I have, another therapy that I do with people.
Of course.
Of course. It's a body-oriented therapy that looks at your body and says, this is what I see for your body. This is where I see some blockages. This is where I see you can hold energy. This is where I see energy you're not able to hold, the energy that you want. So that would be a choice. You would get to go in there, and if you had these ideas, well, I could meditate for a little bit. I could think about memorizing. Re-experiencing a good memory changes you. It changes your brain. And so you could have a list of, here's 5 things I could do. I could think about a good memory. And I could sit in this place of remembering a good time, and your serotonin is going to change in your brain, right? You could do some stretches or some grounding, and you could bring up that energy, and you could feel really solid, very, very solid. You could do some of the yoga. Did I just say that? Do the yoga. You could do the
stretches.
Colors. Yeah, the stretches. You could do the colors. You could also do humming. There's like just that putting the top of your tongue on the top of the roof of your mouth, then opens up your brain. Your skull. It gives you. It makes a change. Just try it.
Humming. Did you say humming?
Humming. Yeah, where you're going. Yes.
I have never heard that.
Try it. I'm going to listen to you. Try it and see when you're present to your body, that's probably the key. The key is to go into your studio, being open to being present to you, and kind of scanning, wow, what do I need? Do I need something from my feet, from my pelvis, from my heart, from my head? What do I need? What's blocked? And what can I open physically? And so not even a place of what am I going to paint next, or what am I going to draw next, or what's going to happen next. Just like being present to you. What a gift. What a gift it is to be present to yourself, to saying, I need this and I can give it to me. Within just a few minutes, things will start changing.
So it's
true, by the way.
Even better yet.
Even better yet. It's true.
So it's that being present, just being present and being present to yourself can expedite that creative process, or just help you enter that creative process and going into that next level, that higher state of consciousness that we're talking about.
I think when you feel under pressure, you're not really being present to yourself. You're being in the problem, right?
Right.
Like like I can't create today. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And if that is being present to your problem, to the issue. But if you had 5 things just sitting over there on, well, some people might call it an altar, but some people might call it a desk. And if you have 5 things that you say, okay, I'm having a challenge being present to me, let's see which of these 5 things I'd like to do. And maybe you don't even have to ask yourself which you'd like to do. You just close your eyes and pick up one of them and know that this is the right one that I need to do today. Oh, it says I need to stretch. Okay, it says I need to ground. I'm going to do that, right?
Well, I love that. What I would encourage listeners to do is something I do is I have a sheet on the wall and I call it my toolkit. And I write it up there. And so every time something comes to you like this, and you can obviously pick and choose, Peggy has so many choices here, you can say which works for you and which doesn't. You write that down on the list. Maybe it's just sitting quietly. Maybe it is listening to music. Maybe it is doing some yoga stretching. And so reminding yourself for future, when you come back into the studio, maybe it's the ritual. I do have a ritual in my studio and it's important. So, all of those things are ways that we can engage and enter into that creative process. So this has been a wonderful interview. Very, very dense. There's so much to talk about, but I think this is a great starting point for people to actually see this creative process and obviously, and I want to end it with one last thing. I have all my life gone to counseling. And for various reasons, I've gone to counseling in different parts of my life and coaching. And I meet people that haven't ever gone to a counselor. And it just amazes me. It's not weakness to go to a counselor. It's showing that you trust the universe to support you. And there are people out there that are trained with, like you said, with these wonderful techniques and tools. And so I encourage any of my listeners that have never, ever gone to a coach or a counselor to do it. It's a wonderful thing. And it just shows a sense of spiritual artistry that you're taking charge of your life.
Yeah.
And so I can't praise more what you do. You know, it's a wonderful gift to share with people.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel very fortunate. I love how I show up for other people, and I'm showing up for me. And so I appreciate having the opportunity to just share these thoughts with you, Chris.
Oh,
because that's what we're doing. Yeah.
It is. And I'll tell you what, I can tell already, we're going to probably have you come back at a later date because there's just so much information here. So anyway, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And I'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Whether you're watching this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, make sure you choose the subscribe button so that you will receive updates when new segments are released. Most importantly, be still, listen, and know that you are a spiritual artist.